And I was like, what do I do? And
What do now? Me, Jesus, good. What do? Hey everybody, Buddy Basil here, and you are listening to the Joyspiracy Theory. That's right. Thanks everybody for stopping by. This is going to be such a fun day. You didn't even know what you were getting into. But that's right. And for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. This is going to be a great episode to jump in on. As you've probably already noticed, one of the longer episodes, but not too bad. I think we're keeping it under 2.5 or 3 hours, which is, that's good. You know, it's a little on the longer side, but everything's going to be fine. So I'm going to keep the intro a little short today. I just want to say that it's been revealed I am back from Burning Man. That's right. So we're going to have an opportunity. I'm going to be putting out some recordings, some field reports, some audio experiences, and those will be found across the wide range of channels that I put stuff out on. But I will also be putting something out here. It'll probably be split between the main feed and the Patreon supporters, and which is a great segue into thanking all the new Patreon supporters. That's right. Since the last episode, there's been a few of you, and I so much appreciate it. Go ahead and send me your furry friends' names so I can give them a shout out on the show. That's right. And along with that, if you guys want to support the show to keep this moving, we did recently pass the $500 mark. That's right. That was our first goal. That's going to help me continue to get these out at a more consistent pace, which is the plan. And of course, I'm doing an intro here, so I have a cat jumping on my lap, squishing all my notes. Get out of here. Okay, love you. So there you go. We're doing it. We're going to be pushing harder than ever to get these episodes out every week, as well as getting some more Ask Baz episodes and other stuff on the Patreon page. So if you're interested in helping continue this show, it's only possible through your guys' support, and you get some bonus fun stuff over there. My favorite being the show Ask Baz, which I just sit and I answer your guys' questions about anything, faith or life or my personal life, things like that. So keep an eye out for that. But today we have Brett on the show here. It's going to be awesome. You guys are going to love it. He is a content creator. He grew up in an atheist family. We get to follow that journey to finding Jesus and ultimately becoming a superstar in South Africa. Let's go.
good morning.
Good morning, sleepyhead.
How's it going?
It's going great. Is this Brett?
This is Brett.
Great. You sound great. You got a good little setup over there.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of money because I do live streams, so I
Oh,
have
yeah. You
a decent mic.
You streamers, you tech people. I like you guys. You guys sound good when you get on for podcasts. Well, I think we can just turn this test call right into an episode then.
All right, sounds good to me.
What do you say?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, sounds good. Well, before we jump into it, buddy, let me know what you're grateful for today.
I think I'm grateful mostly for the internet. Like the fact that we can communicate across the world like this is insane. And then also my family. I have a wife, 3 kids, and a dog, because I know that'll come up in conversation later.
And a dog, yes. Priming me for the end of the show. Good job.
Yes.
Now I know. I got to hold on. I'm very technical over here. I got to take a piece of paper out of my printer so I can take notes. All right. So this is very exciting. It is very early in the morning for you. And it is comfortably, it is right there in the prime evening time for me. Tell us where you at and what's going on over there, man.
Yeah, so I'm in South Africa, currently, I think 9 hours ahead of you in California.
Okay.
So it's a good wee 5 a.m. in the morning. Had my coffee.
I really appreciate. I get real mixed up with time zones, and so I like to just stipulate we're meeting at 8 PST and just let you do the work. A lot of people make me do the work. I don't like doing it, but you're a smart guy. You did it. You made it easy.
Well, I mean, we've been living in South Africa for 3 years. All of our family's still in the States, so like communicating with them is always a mission. So our family's like in Florida, so we know 6 hours to Florida, and then just add 3 hours for California. Makes
Yeah,
perfect
see,
sense.
you got it. Perfect sense. Man, South Africa, that is very cool. It's been a while since I've talked to somebody that far away. I mean, we might literally be as far away from each other as anybody can get.
Yeah, it's a considerable distance. It's
Yes,
the
a
plane flights are
considerable
atrocious.
distance, Brett. It is indeed, indubitably, a considerable distance.
Yeah, like yeah, if you try to go cheap as far as like flights for getting here, it can
Uh-huh.
take up to like I think we took 37 hours to get here from Florida when we flew
Woo!
here earlier this year.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean we're a family of five, so we don't get to spend money on the direct flights. Everything has to be as budget as possible.
Yeah, that is, and with a family of five, I mean, your budget for your plane ticket is like a 5-star luxury vacation for me.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we've had the craziest year when it comes to travel and being around because like we're in South Africa as quote unquote missionaries. Um,
Okay.
like we're not in the bush. Like we're in Pretoria, so like we're in a major city and we work with an urban church. So that's not like you tell people, "Hey, I'm a missionary in Africa." They're picturing lions,
Right.
giraffes,
Yeah, you're
hippos
in
in
a
the
little,
backyard.
you got your safari hat on and
Yeah,
an elephant gun in one hand and a Bible in the other.
exactly. But no, we're more in an urban setting. Um,
The
wow,
whole
lost my train.
family. You
Whole
got the
family.
whole family over there. Okay. When did you go over there?
It was 2015 when we first made the trek over here. But we had felt the call from Jesus to go to South Africa back in 2013. So it took us a full 2 years of preparation. In between, we had a child who had medical problems, which kind of delayed us. And then, like, fundraising as a missionary uh, it is the most humbling experience you could ever go through.
Yeah.
I maybe not most, but it's definitely up in the top 10. I would put it there.
Yeah,
And so
yes, I'm familiar. It is. Luckily, I am now in a profession where I have to ask for money every week, so I've gotten comfortable with it. But
yeah, I mean there are I could see the parallels between like being a missionary and like being a content creator who's dependent on the audience, especially like for the work that you and Gons do as far as like the uncertainty of the political climate. YouTube could strip you guys down from whatever platform. The podcast people like iTunes could remove you guys if they determine that you're
hmm
violating whatever hate speech protocol. Like
yeah,
it's an uncertain time, and so like
yeah,
being supported completely by the listeners is like
it's all we
it's a
got,
faith-filled
man.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so oh man, there's so many things I want to talk about because you also are a content creator. We'll get there.
Okay.
Of which I love, by the way. I just want you to know right now, before we get into it, I poked around on your channel for quite a while, enjoyed it very much.
Okay.
But that's not what this is about. So, okay, we got to back up a little bit.
Sounds good.
Were you born as a missionary to South Africa, or did some stuff happen before that?
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, I have like the exact opposite story because I grew up in an atheist household. So like
Oh,
my parents not believing in Jesus. Like I went to church only because like my great grandparents asked to take me on some Sundays. And I realized that we have Awanas in common.
Oh
That's
yeah.
something in my childhood, but only
Nice.
very sparingly if I visited my grandparents or great grandparents. And
Man,
like,
that's a tough program to go through sparingly, you know. I mean,
yeah, and
you got a lot of stuff to keep track of. You got your book, you need your memory verse for the next week. That's
I'm
tough,
pretty
man.
sure I never did the memory verse. And it's like I can't remember a single time anybody shared the gospel with me growing up, like
Really?
at all. Like it, all I remember of Awanas is that like I would run around the church and like, yeah, I'm sure that they were teaching us the Bible, but not in like a personal, like they were talking to Brett kind of way, but more like this is what everybody needs to know. And
Yeah.
so, like, personal presentation of the gospel, like my great grandparents just took me to church. Then I can't recall them talking to us about it afterwards ever.
That's interesting. You know, usually when grandparents go through the trouble of bringing the kids to church, it means they kind of are on a mission, you know,
Yeah,
to save
I'm
the
not sure they
souls.
were. Just kind of like, well, this is where we go, and the parents want to get rid of them, so like we'll just take them with
So
us.
they're coming with us. Yeah, okay. All right.
We're an
So,
accessory too.
you know, yeah, yeah, you're cute. So is it just you, or you have your brothers and sisters, or what does that look like?
Yeah, I have an older sister, younger brother, and we all kind of went. But I mean, all of us, like, I think once we hit the age of like 7 or 8, we were just like, yeah, we're done with this church thing ever going. No reason to go. We're kind of past the point where we can play games and feel like we're being entertained here.
Right.
Uh, Especially since like at home, like our dad and our mom were communicating to us like, nah, this religion thing, like that's for people who need it. Like it's a crutch for people who don't know how to like rationally cope with their lives.
Right.
And so you hear that at home, and then you go to church, and you're like, what are these buffoons doing? And so it like didn't necessarily have the greatest heart going into any church activities. But again, it was also very sparingly. So yeah, I was.
That's very interesting. Your parents, they sound like some intellectual types.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty smart people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I love them a lot. My mom actually passed away
Oh, I'm sorry.
5 years, 8 years ago. Sorry,
Wow. Yeah.
uh, like in one of the worst ways possible because I was about to get married and she got in a car accident 5 days before our wedding,
Oh
and so
no.
yeah, like she never actually got to meet my wife because like my mom was living in a different state, and my family backstory is super complicated. Like my mom like kind of disowned our family at one point when my parents got divorced when I was in high school, and then like I didn't talk to her for like 3 or 4 years. I got saved. I invited her to the wedding to like reconcile relationships, and then she died.
Oh my
So
gosh.
there's a whole story in
Yeah.
there that I realize needs unpacking, but
It does need a little unpacking, and you know the rules here. You don't got to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. But I mean, right there, that's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. Now, just real quick, just to take it back a step again, you know, you're back in Awanas, you're visiting grandma, grandpa, they're taking you to church. You're not hearing the gospel. Mom and dad are atheists, and you know, kind of have I don't know what I consider, you know, sort of a intellectual, secular view of religion. Um, at least that's kind of like a stereotype, I guess. I'm not categorizing that in any real way. Um, and so, what was that like as a kid? I mean, your parents were together for a while, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a just a straightforward logical person, and so like I just took it to its logical extremes of like if God isn't real, there is no like objective consequence for my reality. Like I'm speaking like this is from 10 to 18, this is my development of thinking
Yeah.
is like there's no purpose in trying to develop any sort of like respectable personality
Mm,
because like there's no consequences.
yeah.
Like there's only temporary consequences. There's the uncomfortableness that you get when you put somebody in an awkward situation because you insulted them, not not some eternal thing that I'll have to be accountable to later.
So I
And
have a
so like,
feeling you weren't very popular in some circles between 10 and 18.
I mean, I was also the weird kid, so that didn't help things.
Yeah.
Uh, like I have distinct memories of middle school of like children paying me money to drink whatever concoction they could make
Oh,
with like
you were
mixing their food
that
with beverage.
kid.
I was that kid, unfortunately, and that's probably the most uncomfortable thing I have sharing today because that's like that's bringing up some like deep trauma right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry to have dredged that up. But yeah, I mean, that's very interesting, and I gotta say, I don't think that's necessarily an uncommon story. I think in one way, and this is not to belittle your point, but I think in one way or another, I mean, kids are weird, man. Kids,
Yeah.
when you're a kid, I think back to like some things that I did as a kid. It's just weird, like just making strange choices. Especially social ones, because
Yeah.
if you're not super socialized super early, you just don't really know what's going on there.
Yeah, and I have to be super protective of my kids because I'm just like, oof, like you're growing up in a foreign country, we're homeschooling you on top of that. So like the factor for weirdness is at an all-time high. So like anytime I see something that's just like, whoa, 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 that's not normal behavior. Let's have a chat about why you just did that.
That's so funny. Just being hyper vigilant, just hyper aware of like, okay, we definitely are in a super dicey situation here. Who knows how this could end up? Any misstep on the road to adulthood in this, we've already set ourselves up for a couple of weirdos. But so you're a little bit, a little bit strange, getting paid to drink weird drinks in the cafeteria. Maybe not necessarily the most socially popular kid, but was that just kind of a product of what?
I don't know. Like
just being a kid.
It was my personality mixed with the fact that I didn't feel like I had any consequences to personally worry about. So
that
it
consequence
manifested in
thing
a weird way.
That consequence thing is very interesting. I mean, it's one thing to not think of any eternal consequences, because of a non-belief in God. But I mean, as a kid, you still got consequences from your parents. You still got all sorts of that. Was that kind of stuff lacking a little bit too?
No, my parents they were there. They had input. They disciplined. Not in a super great sense or anything. Like if they got fed up at me, they would like shout and like beat me.
Yeah.
Not okay. That was so.
Hey man, that kind of stuff comes out all the time on this show.
Well, no, it's like I was not physically abused, but in South Africa, the term for spanking a child is beating them.
Oh,
and so
well, that's fun.
Language mix up. That's all that is.
Okay, yeah, we've got a little bit of things can be lost in translation here. You've been there for 3 years. You're starting to go native. Yeah, okay, so you get the spanking, so relatively normal there.
Like the way I rationed it out in my mind was like all of the consequences that I might be experiencing are just temporary and they're feelings more than they're like an actual like product, if that makes sense. Like any bad relationship I have is like I just feel bad about that. Like anytime I'm hurt, that's just internal. That's not an objective fact here.
Yeah. So to me, it sounds like you were one of those kids who's a little too smart for their own good.
Yeah. No, that definitely. I never studied. I was the kid who could like just sit in class and then get perfect grades.
Yeah.
And my wife hates me for that. But it's just it's how God made me. So I'm not apologizing for it.
Okay, it's all coming together now. I'm getting the picture. Okay, so coming up in school, you made it through school though. Nothing super traumatic or super exciting. Were you, did get into sports? Do any competitions or anything like that? Did you put your smarts to use, or were you kind of this rebel child?
Yeah, one, I had asthma and I used that as an excuse to not pursue any athletics, which just meant that I had the perfect excuse to stay home and play video games.
Yeah, I had a fake thing called exercise-induced asthma that I that I got a note for and could get out of the mile run and such.
Well, my asthma is actually pretty severe.
Okay,
but
so
I
you have
also
the
like,
real one.
yeah, yeah. But as an adult, like I realized, like no, I was like, if I would have pushed myself, I could have found a way to, like, I'm regretting all of the lost opportunity as a child. Um,
Mm.
but I was in the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program in high school.
Mm.
And in the state of Florida, that means that you're exempt from having to do gym class in high school.
What?
And so, like, I just didn't even have to think about it for like the last 4 years of my like education career,
He's too smart for dodgeball.
basically.
It's very interesting. I actually we don't have IB where I came from. We had AP, and I understand
Yeah.
that they're similar.
Well, from an IB person's perspective, AP is lower on the totem pole.
I'm sure. That does not surprise me. But yeah, I had just learned about IB literally like 2 days ago, so it's funny you bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah, so you were too smart. You're too smart for your own good. You're a precocious.
Yeah. And that ended up leading to, I think it was my junior year, the summer between junior and senior year. I actually attempted suicide, not based out of like any sort of depression or like anything going wrong in my life, but rather like I just had reasoned out that like, well, none of this matters. Why go through the suffering of normal life if I don't have to? Let's go ahead and try to kill myself here, which obviously I didn't succeed.
Yeah.
So like it baffled my parents and like even the psychologist who had to evaluate me to let me out of the hospital was just like, why did you do this? And I was just like, I don't like, why wouldn't I? Like, what's the point? There is like I'm not depressed. It just like I did it.
That's very interesting because, I'm kind of being funny saying you're too smart for your own good, but what it sounds like was you were a smart introvert.
Yes.
Who had a very rich inner life. And
rich inner life.
Yeah, just a rich inner life. Like you thought about things a lot. You thought deeply about things. And you did a lot went on inside your head that wasn't, that didn't necessarily reflect things going on around you. And, just to put it out there, I mean, I am only able to recognize that because I was kind of similar in a way. I was a little bit of a weirdo. I did my best to be acceptable in social situations. But I remember being 12 years old and, I was kind of coming at it the same way as you, but I was on the other side. I was still very much a good church boy. But I was so convinced of eternity, of course, of which I still am, but I just had no fear of death whatsoever. I remember just being like, at 12 years old, just being totally fine with like dying and like it not even giving it a second thought. And I remember I shared that with somebody and they got a little bit worried about me. But anyways, that's to say that I'm getting I'm understanding the picture of young Brettith here.
Yes. Yeah. Well, from what I gather, we also grew up at a similar time as well. We're roughly the same age.
I think so. Yeah. What are you?
Yeah.
Late 20s, early 30s?
Late 20s.
Yeah, late 20s.
Not haven't crossed the 30 boundary yet.
Yeah, same here, buddy. We still got a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we were growing up in the same milieu. Where in the US did you grow up? Did you tell me that already?
No. So I was born in New Jersey and I spent like the first half, like 10, 13 years there. And then like all of my high school days were spent in Florida.
Oh yeah, Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So like New Jersey, the school I went to, very intellectual, like I remember transitioning in the middle of 8th grade and going into my classes in Florida and just being like, I did this last year. Why am I having to do this again? Like what sort of education system do they have down here? turns out Florida was actually a really bad education system at the time. So,
so you got out of the hospital. The doctor's like, "What?" And you're like, "I don't know."
Yeah, and he was just like, "You're not going to do this again, are you?" And I was like, "Probably not. Like, I tried it once, didn't really do well at it. So, we'll just see how it goes." So I completed high school, no problem. Graduated, got into university, went to the University of Florida. Go Gators! Just have to sneak that in there. And like that's kind of where God started like actively entering my life, as far as like where I see Him moving, at least.
Yeah.
Because like I could look back on my life and obviously recognize Jesus like prevented me from so many things. Like because I was an introvert, like I was self-destructive in a way because like I had no fear of consequences. But like I was such an introvert and I was into video games that I never got into the partying lifestyle.
Yeah.
I never did drugs, never really drank, even though like I had no objections to it. I just didn't run in the circles that did that. And so like I can see that like God set me up in a way to at least not throw my life away all like completely.
Yeah.
Because that could have very easily happened because I think I could recognize I have an addictive personality, and that came out with the video games and all of these other things.
Sure. Yeah.
And it could have very easily led to something like more detrimental to my life than just like, no, I played Team Fortress 2 for like 7 to 8 hours a night.
I definitely at one time told my mother, don't worry. She was like telling me not to play video games or get off the Nintendo or something. I was like, Mom, video games are my anti-drug. It's like during that the like DARE program where you were like supposed to pick like your anti-drug. And I got to play all the video games I wanted after that. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, like in the context of like being in South Africa and seeing just how easily like kids can fall into gangs or drugs or like not good lifestyles, it's honestly like having something that keeps you from being bored is a huge like thing for making sure that like kids don't end up in that. Like,
yeah,
as if kids can get a hobby, they are much less likely to enter into some sort of gang relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean that's a side point, but like,
yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like actually something you can speak quite authoritatively on later on when we get to that point in the story.
Yeah. So went to university. God started like moving in my life because so my best friend from high school, we went to university together. He got an apartment off campus, and it was the top floor of or the second floor of an apartment building, and right below that apartment building was my then to be wife or soon to be wife, or she eventually became my wife. Is the point of the story. I'm spoiling.
Below, she was hiding under the building, or she was on the first floor. She was hiding in the basement. She was hiding
under the building,
just waiting to pounce,
just like a troll. Yes. She's never going to listen to this, so it's okay.
No, so she lived the floor below you.
Yeah. And like me and my friend, like we just had no regard for society, so like we would be blasting music like the night before like our first classes of freshman year, like music as loud as possible, stomping on the floor. And anybody who's lived on below an apartment knows exactly, like there's just elephants living above you all the time. And then especially if you have elephants who disregard reasonable sound levels,
who just believe there are no consequences for their actions.
Yeah. So my wife is a petite, like maybe 105 pounds soaking wet person. And so like she's trying to get ready for school the next day, but she's just like, I have to go talk to these people. I have no idea who they are. Like they're just disturbing me right now, and I have to have some sleep. And so she takes her Doberman and she comes up to the top apartment. She knocks on the door, and my best friend answers, and he's like a 5'5", 150-pound Indian man. And like he's just like he's eye level with the dog. And she's just like, could you turn it down? And he's like, oh, yeah, sorry. It's so like from the beginning, it was more of an adversarial relationship that we had.
She made quite an impression,
Yes,
bringing her
yeah,
hound of war to help achieve her goals.
yeah. So that's the first introduction that we had to my wife, and she was a Christian. She grew up in a Christian household, um, and so like me and my friend knew that, and our nickname for her was the devil because we just thought that was a cute little play on words for that cute little Christian girl downstairs. We'll like if we need to talk about her in code, we'll just refer to her as the devil.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like uh let me
Did
figure out
she
how
know
I supposed
that? Did she know that you called her that?
I don't think I've ever told her that actually up until this point.
Uh-oh,
That was just
uh-oh,
it's just
secret
she wouldn't be
with all the
surprised.
listeners.
Yeah. So th- she's kind of the focal point of like my journey of faith. Like she that's the point where God began to change me. Uh but not in a normal way even then. So like we
Okay,
go through our freshman year
I'm
and like
real quick.
yes.
Let's remember this point. You're going into your freshman year.
Yes.
At what point did your parents get divorced?
Okay, yes, that was my sophomore year of high school, so when I was 16. And it wasn't a normal divorce because like they got divorced, but then they still lived in the same house and shared the same bed. It was like a really weird situation of like
Wow, yeah, that's
our,
maritally complicated.
yeah, so my mom actually had bipolar disorder, which kind of like it for the first like 15 years of my life was just like mom's a little off, but like not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But then at some point, like she got on medication, started drinking with the medication, and like our life just kind of devolved from there.
Really, it
But
started getting crazy at that point.
yeah, like I can,
What
there
age
was
were
like
you then?
around 12 or 13. It was about the time we actually transitioned from New Jersey to Florida that like my parents started drinking more and like everything just
So,
kind of fell apart.
yeah, there's a little bit of instability started coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was always there. Like but it was never so I found out this after my mom died that like my sister was the one who received the brunt of my mom's like mental illness
Mm.
and like being verbally abused, sometimes physically abused, like always telling her that she wished she was never born and that like she wishes
Mm.
she was a boy. And like I just had no idea any of that was ever happening.
Yeah, that real bipolar type of stuff, the real emotional, like
Yeah,
extremes
right.
of abuse that can come from those episodes.
Yeah. And I never received any of that. So I was totally oblivious to what was happening.
Interesting.
Um and then like with bipolar, like you're prone to spending a lot of money. And, you know, I find out later, we were in huge debt because, you know, my mom was racking up all the credit card bills whenever she was having a manic episode. And it was like, obviously that would create tension in any marriage. So,
Yeah, no, definitely. And your
yeah.
father was just doing his best hanging on?
Yeah. I mean, they kind of had a stay together for the kids mentality.
Mm.
Um, and just like he recognized something was off about my mom and like they were just going to try to hold it out as long as possible. But then it just got to the point where the drinking was so bad and she wasn't taking care of herself that my dad was like, I have to end this. And then he also like he had extra incentive because at the 17-year mark is where you go from having to pay conditional alimony to perpetual alimony for the rest of your life. And so he was like, we have to get this done before the 17th year of marriage because I don't want to
Oh,
be paying for the rest of my life.
interesting. I did not know that that was a thing.
I think that's just like in Florida. I think it might be a state thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But in order to figure that out, it takes a little bit of research, and he kind of saw the writing on the wall there, and
yeah,
made a very logical decision, which
yeah,
sounds in character.
yeah. So they got divorced my sophomore year. Eventually, my mom decides that she's just gonna leave, uh, like leave the state, go back to New Jersey to be near her family. I
Yeah.
think. Like I wasn't even sure of the reasoning, but we had a conversation on like a Saturday evening, and they're like, "Okay, kids, choose," and we're like, "Choose what?" They're like, "Choose who you're living with."
What?
Yeah,
Whoa.
yeah, and so
With
like
no pretense whatsoever, just
oh yeah, hey, I'm leaving. Who are you going with? I'm like, I think we had like 2 weeks before she.
and you were aware of the divorce, or were they
Yeah,
like
yeah.
trying to keep it secret? I mean, what was
No,
that like having your parents divorced and living and sleeping in the same bed?
I was just confused, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just like that's not a normal situation. They couldn't hide it from us because like the state law makes it so that you have to get counseling as a kid if your parents are going through a divorce. So we had to go to the
Oh,
counseling sessions. Uh, but like everybody else in the counseling, because it's like a group counseling thing, and everybody else is telling their story about how awful it is, and like their parents are like not living together, and we're just like, yeah, not much has changed. They just fight a lot. It's just
wow.
like they're in the same house. There's like
That's
they
incredible.
go to sleep in the same room.
Yeah, I mean, it really just kind of compounds on that logical decision your dad made, because it wasn't even like, oh, I got to get away from this woman. It's like, oh,
Part of it was,
she
yeah,
can still be around, but we got to cut this off before 17 years because, man, I ain't got the money for that.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
So it was just it was an odd situation, and like we didn't presume it was going to last forever. Like, what divorced couple wants to stay together?
Yeah,
Like, obviously, my mom would have to move out at some point. We just thought like like we'll sell the house and like everybody's going to move into two separate apartments or something like that.
right.
So like me and my sister were in high school at the time, so we were just like, yeah, we're going to stay where we are because we want to finish out high school.
Yeah.
And then my brother, who was younger, he was in middle school. Like he just ended up going with my mom. Um, but that's my mom ended up leaving, and I think I was kind of bitter at her for that.
Yeah.
Like not not like logically or thinking about it, but like I think I just had like a well, why did she have to leave type mentality. And so like my dad would try.
You were having what we humans call emotions, Brett.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, which did not compute at the time.
Okay, all right, all right. So yes, it was. You didn't understand it. You didn't know why she had to do that.
Yeah, and my dad would like try to get us to call her every week and make sure that we were still keeping in contact. But like me and my sister are just like, nah, we don't need to talk to her at all. And like I find out later, like my mom's life really fell apart during those years of
Mm.
us not being in contact. Because like at some point, like my dad just stopped trying. He was like, "You kids really should talk to your mom." And we're like, "Nah, no, stop talking to us about it, please."
Yeah.
And
Wow.
then he just let it go because like he couldn't force us. So
Yeah.
yeah. And like my mom got on cocaine during that time. She was like physically beating my brother in
Oh
like
no.
the traditional sense of what beating means.
Yeah.
And
The
like
the
he
American sense.
yeah, he suffered a lot of abuse during those years that like we had no idea was happening because we dropped contact, which also meant that I dropped contact with my brother.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a
That's got to
it
be
was a rough
hard.
situation.
Yeah, that's got to be hard. It's got to be hard at the time, and then especially afterwards, learning about it. I'm sure it was very difficult. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, well, like I only know about all this in retrospect, and it's just like I know at the time if I had known that information, I would have just been like, well, that's what she gets.
Mm,
But like obviously now following Jesus, wanting to have those years back, uh, yeah, it's a different situation.
yeah.
So yeah, my brother went through a lot. He ended up like there was at one point like some kid sucker punched him at high school and like shattered his jaw,
Oh my
and
gosh.
like he ended up coming to live with us after that, like in my senior year of high school.
Uh huh.
and like he had completely turned into like the typical rebellious child who wants no authorities, wants no rules, will smoke pot in your house, and just like no matter what you do, will always defy whatever rule you place in front of him.
Oh
Like
wow.
even if he's naturally doing it, if you
Yeah.
say, okay, I want you to do this now, he'll be like, screw you, man. I don't care what your rules are. I'm gonna stop doing that.
That is so strange. That must have been a weird experience having your brother. I mean, and you didn't know at the time, but having him come back, basically, I mean, he must have felt kind of like a different person.
Yeah, I mean, he was always the, I guess, adventurous one would be the mildest way of putting it. Of
Mm-hmm.
like his spirit for testing boundaries was constantly there.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, it was just like, oh, so you just got worse. Great.
Great.
Well, I was finishing up my last year. I'm trying to, apply to colleges, think about all of that. I had my own car. Like I didn't need to concern myself with him. So
Yeah,
I
you had
didn't.
your own thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like future point of the story, like that eventually led to like at some point, while he was still in high school, right after my mom died, like my dad kicked him out of the house because like he just wouldn't stop smoking weed in the house.
Mm.
And like it during our first year of marriage, we actually ended up taking my brother in for a short period, like trying to be his parents, even though I was only like 3.5 years older than him.
That's a dangerous game, my man.
Yeah, it only lasted a total of 2 weeks, because he ended up, because my mom died, he ended up getting Social Security money from her because he was still a minor.
Oh wow.
Um, and he decided that $700 a month was like enough for him to like not have to live with us.
To go out on
And
his
like,
own.
yeah, like we were trying to get him into a high school where we were, and like just like, hey, like we want you to have a good structured life. Come live with us. We'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I have $700 a month. I could do anything I want. I'm
Oh my
unstoppable.
gosh.
And so like it wasn't. He just ended up saying to us like, I can't live under your rules. I'm gonna go figure this out by myself.
Yeah, just a true wild child, man.
Yeah, yeah. And he's kind of remained the black sheep of my family to this day, and I'm like the only one who pursues relationship with him because I follow Jesus and I know that reconciliation is like what believers are supposed to do.
Hey,
So like
that's
no matter what he does to me, it's like I forgive you. Like when you're ready, like let's be brothers again.
yeah, that's mission critical, man. Yeah, and that can be difficult too. I mean, it's easy to say like, yep, because it's what Jesus wants, but it doesn't make it any easier when the other person is not reciprocating in a in a mutually beneficial way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're in South Africa and he's in America.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm
correct.
assuming. Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
contact's limited between us. He's not even like he's not on Facebook. I don't have his phone number because he's like the kind of guy who like destroys his phone every week accidentally. So it's always a new number. So like I have no way of getting in contact with him. We were
Wow.
back in the States for like 4 months this year,
Hmm.
and like I tried to meet up with him somehow, and it just never ended up working out because I could never contact him appropriately.
Wow. So, all right, let's get back to it.
Okay,
You've
freshman year of high school
freshman
or
year of
university.
college. Yes,
College.
university. You've been confronted by the war queen, the tiny war queen who lives beneath you, and now you've moved into the freshman year of college.
Right. So my freshman year of college was just kind of more of the same, not caring about anything, not really wanting consequences, treating people really badly because of that. And then that's where my like smarts kind of caught up with me because I hadn't developed any sort of work ethic.
Yeah.
And so by the end of my freshman year, I was one semester away of being kicked out because of my GPA being so low, because I just never showed up for class. I never did the assignments. I would do well on the tests, but in university, that doesn't really matter.
Right. What changed? What flipped? You used to
I
be such a good student.
I think like in high school, like the teachers just kind of coddled me and allowed me to get away with like bending the rules of like homework and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas
Uh,
like the for some of my classes, it was like you have a mandatory lab that you have to show up for every Thursday. And I'd just be like, I don't need that lab. I'm going to ace this test. And then it's like 60% of your grade. And so it was really like my performance on tests and like my education was still fine. It was just how they measured it and how they treated me. It was totally different. And
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely caught up with me. But
And now,
it was that,
were you still doing the video games? Were you still staying out of trouble, or like the lot of us, did you start getting in trouble, getting into some shenanigans in college?
not real. Like I can remember like maybe 3 or 4 times where I went to a party and actually drank, um, and it was just like that's what my friends wanted to do that night, and so it's like okay, but like for the most part, we were like the kids who wanted to have a LAN party instead, or
Oh
like
yeah.
we would have like weekly movie nights at my best friend's house, and so like he got a projector and like we had a giant sound system, which is what was annoying to my wife, and so like we would just torrent movies and put those on the screen, and like everybody would come over and like they came to us instead of us having to go out and seek social interaction.
That's so funny. It sounds like you went to a Christian college.
Not quite.
You're living the life of a Christian college student as an atheist video game master.
Yeah. I was never a master at it. I'm terrible at video games. They were just an escape for me.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't have to think for a few hours. All I have to do is like point and click and shoot the enemy.
Well, that's good. At least you're aware of it. It's good to know what's therapeutic for you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I never really got into trouble. I have one memory of like waking up behind like a church bench, like because like we went to a frat party and like me and my friend like dared each other to drink like 20 shots, which is a terrible idea. We're not big enough for that. Like I'm only 160 pounds, so like I can't handle that much alcohol.
I don't know if Goliath was big enough for that, but okay.
So like within I think like an hour we just downed 20 shots because like it's a frat party. They're not checking IDs. We're only 18. What does it matter? And then like we ended up stumbling out of the party, and I remember waking up behind a park bench that's in front of a church, and I can't find my friend, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna walk home to my dorm room. And so I stumble home drunk, and I find out the next day that like he was right next to me behind the bench. I just didn't see him.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Yeah.
That's a classic maneuver. Okay, so you went a little hard that night.
I think that was the last time though.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is not reasonable. I'm probably like, I could very easily die from doing this. Let's not tempt fate here.
At least you took the hint, man. A lot of people don't take the hint. For a lot of college students, that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I think my introvert nature just kind of was like, I didn't like being at the frat party. So like the condition to get the alcohol was sufficiently hard that the barrier to entry was way too high. So
yeah, too many humans.
It wasn't worth the entry fee. So
having to speak with and interact with other human beings. I get it. I totally get it. Ain't no shame in your game, my man.
Yeah. Well, moving on, like towards the end of freshman year, my wife at that time, just like this person who lived below like she would come up for movie nights when occasionally she could, but like she would always ask, is Brett going to be there? And then the answer to that question determined whether or not she was going. If I was not going to be there, she would attend.
That is not what I was expecting.
No, like I was horrible to her. Like the words that like not fit for radio. I cannot say anything that came out of my mouth, or like goodness. I wrote on her Facebook wall, like in the presence of like her family to see.
Like why? But why were you doing that? Was that just your like? It was. I mean, did you have like a crush on her, and you're doing like some weird boy maneuvers, or why were you so mean to her? Why are you so mean to this nice little girl?
Like I thought she was cute, but like I had other romantic interests at the time that I was pursuing, so like she wasn't my main focus. She like I I just like to insult people at that point in my life. And like me and my best friend had this like have you seen the show House? Like with Hugh Laurie,
Yeah,
where
I love
yeah,
House. Totally.
exactly. Like, but like he's a jerk to everybody, and
Yeah.
that's like he was a role model, and we were just like we want to be able to insult people like he does, and so we would just talk to each other like that all of the time. And then when people outside of that circle witnessed that, they were just like, "This is horrible. This is terrible. You guys don't care about each other." When really it was a sign of affection, just our terrible banter.
You had a
But,
very, very special relationship that wasn't quite understood by the normals.
yes. So yeah, no, I was just horrible to her because like I could be, but I was equally as horrible to everybody else. She just had boundaries that other people didn't because she was a believer. So she was just like, I'm not tolerating this. So whether or not he and
what an attractive quality in a young lady. Yeah. That's, you know what, a young lady who can stand up for not taking any guff from Robo Brett and and his sidekick. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. All right. So yes. Good. She had a good head on her shoulders. I like that.
Yeah. No, she's definitely a solid person, which is helpful for me. But at some point, she needed to train for a triathlon that she was going to do, but she didn't want to go running at night. But that was the only time that she could, because she was in the fencing program at UF and like was a top class fencer. And so she only had time at like 10 o'clock at night to go running to prepare for the triathlon. And she asked my friend first, but like him being 5'5", 165 pounds and kind of waddles when he walks, like he was just like, not going to run. Why don't you ask Brett? And so she reluctantly agreed to do so because that was convenient for her schedule. During which time she was like, oh, maybe he's not half bad. Because like it was all a facade. I have a soft underbelly, even if I put on a hard exterior, basically is what she found out. So we began running together, getting to know each other, training for the triathlon, during which time I was riding my bicycle back from campus one day and I got hit by a car. And so like that put me out of commission for training. And then like 2 days later, her dad had ended up buying her a motorcycle and I was like teaching her how to ride it.
What?
And she ended up dropping it and broke the front brake handle off of it. And she still wanted to learn. I was like, well, I mean, you still have the back brake. So like,
oh my
God. Go ahead and still do it. So at which point, like she starts to take off and drives it right into a tree and like breaks her hands.
What is going on in this story? This is crazy.
So we were both training for the triathlon. We're both physically incapacitated. And so like we just kind of commiserated in our like injuries and spent a lot of time together, like sitting next to each other on the couch because like my legs were busted and her arms were busted. And so like I would help her do dishes by like putting them away because I could reach my arms above my head, but she couldn't.
Teamwork.
Yes. So like she was kind of, falling for me at that point because she realized that I wasn't as bad as, all of the words that were coming out of my mouth. But her being, a good Christian girl, she was just like, I cannot have a relationship with him. Like, this is not like it. She was having a war in her mind of like her emotions mixed with like her reasoning of like, God does not want this relationship to happen.
Which, like, ye shall not be unequally yoked.
Exactly. So she was struggling with that. So like we never really got too romantically involved because she was leaving for a missions trip to Papua New Guinea that summer for like 2 months.
What did you think about that? So you weren't quite. I mean, you were still an atheist.
Completely atheist. Yeah.
And okay, all right.
Like I tried to get her to explain it to me, and like I joke with her about this all the time, but like she did a terrible job of like presenting the gospel to me. Like, like when I would ask questions about her faith, she kind of like deflected and dodged more than like tried to convert me.
Interesting.
So like like I was just like, yeah, you never witnessed to me. What's up with that? But like I was just like, I guess that's what she's doing. Like, fine, go ahead. Like, I don't get it, but like go teach the Aborigines about your Jesus.
Have fun on your weird Jesus vacation.
Yeah, like I think you're cute, so like we can make out, but like have fun on like being a missionary, I guess.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and she said, "Farewell, farewell,
yeah.
my love. I am off to see the pygmies."
Well, well, she knew she wasn't doing a great job of like presenting the gospel to me, especially since her emotions were getting in the way. So she like right before she left to go to Papua New Guinea, she gave me a book and she was like, just read this while I'm gone. And like from her side of the story, she was like, I knew he wasn't going to read the Bible, so I gave him a book about the Bible instead of telling him to read the Bible.
She tricked you.
Yes.
She's a smart girl too. Holy smokes.
So she gave me the book, and like since I was smitten with her, I was just like, fine, I'll read it. So she's left the country, and like I read the book, and I'm just like, I've never heard any of this before. Like this is a really interesting perspective of like what it means to like follow Jesus. Nobody's told me any of this.
What
And
book
I was like,
was it?
I'm not comfortable condoning it.
Okay,
Just like
sure.
just like with
Yeah.
you know, Jen, like some people being uncomfortable with like the shack being how she came to faith.
Yeah.
Like,
No, you're making a respectable decision.
like you come back and you're just like, okay, maybe the best theology is not there, but like Jesus definitely like Jesus can use like sinners to save people.
Yeah,
So like
certainly.
yeah. So I read the book, but I mean, it's from a traditional Christian perspective of like the Bible is historically accurate. Like the flood actually happened. Creation was actually 6 days. And I was just like, I don't believe this. Like, how do people actually rationally think that
Right.
any of this happened?
Oh my gosh,
So
that must have been a brain fry for you.
yeah, like I had never talked with a Christian long enough for them to espouse those kind of beliefs to me.
Yeah.
So I guess I was just kind of ignorant that like such people could exist. Cause like in my circle, like because we went to an IB school, like it was more the intellectuals who like being atheist was cool.
Yeah.
And like
What
everybody
what exactly was your understanding of actual Christian theology at that point?
I actually didn't care enough to like really think about
you
it.
just didn't like death and resurrection, maybe just like you knew Jesus was a good guy and something about a resurrection.
Yeah, basically. Like
Yeah.
Easter was zombie Jesus Day.
Yeah,
Was, like
exactly.
as far as I would take it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
hilarious,
Like,
by the way. I love that same thing. I would say that all the time in college, and people didn't like it.
I mean, it is a little sacrilegious.
It's pretty sacrilege, but you know, I was at a pretty, at a fairly liberal Christian college, certainly not the most liberal, that I pulled out the zombie Jesus joke a couple times, and no more because my peers did not enjoy it as much as I did.
Yeah, I think that's
beginning...
as deep as my theological understandings went.
Okay, good. So, yeah, you know, my if I were to take that and use it as an evangelism tool, I might have resonated with you at this point.
It's possible, yes.
Okay, so she gave you the book. You started to kind of get a little bit more of what's going on.
Yeah, and so I took to my trusty pal Google to like research the things that were in the book. And like, lo and behold, like there are like tons of websites dedicated to like, this is how the flood of Noah could actually be historically real. And this is how Noah could have fit that many animals on this giant barge ship.
Right.
It was just a completely different perspective from like what I had known. And like through this, like looking back, I could see that the Holy Spirit was just like really working on me. And like, he was convincing me of the truth of scripture, like even though I had no understanding of it beforehand. Uh, and so like it was just like in my bedroom, I was just like, well, I guess if the Bible is like accurate, then I need to do what it says. And so I'm going to follow Jesus now.
Of course. Of course that's how it went.
Yeah, I mean, a search engine led me to Jesus is basically my testimony story.
The algorithms, the evangelism algorithms. There you go. There's a book. That could be your book.
Well, I mean, I guess it was at the fullness of time because like YouTube and Google are actively like trying to promote against those sort of things, and now you'll get a recommendation as to why it's all fake news.
Yeah, for sure.
So. Yeah, like I gave my life to Jesus in my bedroom, but I had no Christian friends. And so like I called up a guy from high school who I knew was a believer, and I was like, what do I do? And
what do now? Me, Jesus, good. What do?
Yeah, and he was just like, I mean, you should go to church. And I was like, okay, I'll find a church. But I had nobody who went to church. I didn't know which one to choose. Like I was just
That's a tough one, man.
And like
it's a long
my wife,
journey.
She had appointed somebody to like kind of be my spiritual caretaker in all of this. And
Dude, your wife is the funniest person I've ever known or even heard about. That's hilarious. She's like a real responsible type.
Yeah, she is. No, she's a very
she's a thinker.
Yes. So she told him like, take care of Brett, like try to take him to church. And like it took him 2 months after I got saved for me to go to church. It was like the weekend before Sydney was coming back from Papua New Guinea. Like I got saved like 3 days after she left. And then like 2 days before she got back is when I finally went to church. Because like my spiritual caretaker just was not necessarily like he wasn't pursuing Jesus at that time. So he was not going to church.
See, she should have used ZipRecruiter or something and gotten the right. See, that right there, that's an example of advertising seeping into your brain. This podcast is not supported by ZipRecruiter.
I was about to say, but like, I've been listening to Canary Cry Radio where you guys are talking about, like, we're not advertising anybody. Apparently here on the Joyspiracy, it's a little different.
This is a real good example because I was just listening to a podcast that had an ad for ZipRecruiter, and then that just comes out of my mouth. It's brainwashing, man. We got to separate. Beast system. Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's very funny. So I mean that's a pretty miraculous story. I mean, like that's a great. It's just a great story. She leaves, you get saved 3 days later, and then you have to wait until she gets back in order to get connected. So what happened? Did she take you to her church or what?
So I ended up going to the church with my spiritual caretaker, and like I responded to the altar call, which like I didn't know was a thing. Like this was like the first time I was intentionally choosing to sit in church and not being drug along as a child. And so like the pastor at the end's like, if this message has touched you in any way and you need to follow Jesus, I want you to slip up your hand right now. And, like my hand goes up, and like apparently like my spiritual caretaker ends up telling my wife afterwards, he like was telling me, don't do it.
No way.
I didn't hear him, so I guess that's good.
Was this guy was just like, why was he sabotaging here? He just totally wasn't into it at the time.
I suppose that's the only thing that I can reconcile.
That's very funny. Okay, well,
so
the Lord shut up your ears.
Yes,
he pulled a straight Old Testament move on you.
Yeah, I responded to the altar call. One of the altar workers, like he was also a college student. He was like, "Hey, you should come to my small group." And I was like, "I don't know what that is, but okay."
Why is it so small?
And my wife gets back from Papua New Guinea, and like from her side of it, she's just like, she saw that like I was physically different. Like there was like a hardness that had like dissolved from me when she finally saw me again. And she was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I follow Jesus now." And she was like, are you just trying to like become my boyfriend? Like, what's happening here? This is not normal for you to be like such a jerk before I leave. And then now, like, I was just like, I love Jesus and I'm trying to figure this out.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I mean, so being one who grew up in the church and went on missionary trips, and especially went on missionary trips with college students, I mean, you gotta know, and maybe you're saving this part of the story. I don't know. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But I can imagine her leaving leaving for Papua New Guinea and being on the airplane and just like, okay, God, I don't know, something's going on with this guy, but he's not a Christian, but I kind of like, I don't know. And so if this is you, just take care of it while I'm gone. And when I get back, just have it all figured out, and I'll do whatever I can imagine that. And,
yeah, well, they had like a prayer group, like her and like three other college girls,
mm-hmm.
and she said that they literally prayed for me every morning. But like I was already saved by the time she had arrived in Papua New Guinea because it took her 3 days to get there. So like they're praying for my salvation after it already happened.
So that's some real like Jesus time travel right there. That's what a great testimony for the Lord, knowing what we want even before we pray for it and delivering without us even knowing about it. I love that. That's such a great testament. That might have been the most Christian-y thing I've ever said. Such a great testament, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's awesome. She comes back. She's shocked. She's shaking in her boots.
Yeah. So she's just like, I don't trust this. Like he clearly just wants to like be in a relationship with me. So like, let's give this some time to feel out where he is. And so I start going to the small group, and like she grew up in like a very like non-denominational, but like super Baptist and like cessationist type background. And like the church I was going to was like Assemblies of God.
Oh yeah, boy.
Not like in the holy roller situation. Like it was a like very appealing to college students. Like nobody was speaking in tongues on stage, but like the gifts of the Spirit were like definitely promoted. And she was just like, well, you're going to a demon church. I'm kind of confused. What's happening here? And it, like, I just had no context for any of it. I was just like, well, they're doing things that are in the Bible, and like they're explaining all of it. So I'm not sure like where you're coming from. That's because like when I read the Bible, I don't see any of this.
That is so funny. I've had that same experience with kind of new believers or people who are just kind of learning about it. Like they don't really understand the interdenominational tension. And it's just like they're totally lost on it. So that's funny that you were kind of in a similar situation. All right. So she was like, oh, he got saved. Oh, no, he's going to AG. Oh, Lord, why?
Yeah. So she eventually is just like, okay, let me check this out for myself, because she's heard all of these things. But then like she goes and it's like a completely normal church service, like the same type of music, same type of like preaching style, like everything's basically the same. It's just like they believe the parts of the Bible that other people think have stopped. And so she was just like, oh, okay. And so we ended up starting to go to the church together, and she got in her own small group. And like her rule for dating me was, I will not date anyone unless I'm going to marry them. So we have to be sure we're going to get married before we start dating. And so that took like several months of me trying to convince her, like, no, fine, I'll marry you. Like, so like, that's what I want.
I gotta say, that is kind of like a really crazy part of like being a young Christian in college. Because it was the same way in my college. It was like, very much, don't get involved with anybody unless you are going to marry him. Yeah, the casual dating, exactly. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. Look, I'm probably the most, understanding person of, things like that than ever. But also, from an outside perspective, it's like, whoa there.
Yeah.
Okay, no, do I need to give your dad some goats or something after this? Like, are there any other terms I'm signing on for?
No, fortunately, her parents paid for the wedding, so that was nice.
Oh, that is very nice.
Yeah. Well, so we ended up. I convinced her like, no, I promise, like you're the one. Like we're getting married. Don't worry about it. And we started dating. We got engaged 2 months later, and then 2 months later, we got married at a courthouse.
Just went
So
for it.
so we just
2 months
yeah, we just went for it.
later.
Yeah, no, 4 months between like initial dating and then like 4 months on the day,
Yeah, so
which
she was
wasn't planned. It just kind of happened.
serious. Wow.
Well,
That's
yeah.
incredible. You guys straight up did it.
Well, looking back, like we realized that probably wasn't the healthiest thing.
No,
And like we weren't.
definitely not. You're terrifying me. But I mean, hey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we weren't like our first year of marriage was horrible because I was a baby believer. I was still working out all of my junk and like all of my like previous sin issues and like pornography and all of that type of thing.
Yeah,
And
certainly.
she's like from this background where it's like if you're not a virgin, like if you're not marrying a virgin, then like he's not worthy of you because you've saved yourself and he hasn't, so he doesn't deserve you. And so like I had lost my virginity before we got married,
Mm-hmm.
and like she's trying to reconcile in her like I'm married to this guy, but like everything I know, like Christians make a huge deal out of sex. And
Yeah.
so it's like I gave myself away, so therefore she's better than me.
Right.
Like even though that happened before I became a believer,
Mhm.
and like I'm new in Jesus, like all of the teachings of just like you deserve somebody who also is saving himself for you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in that first year, so we got married at a courthouse, and we had like an official church wedding 5 months later when like we finally got around to it. And that was when my mom passed away. And then 6 months later, her dad passed away after like 3 months in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
So like we both lost a parent in the first year. We were dealing with all of this like sin junk and like not knowing how to be married and young stupid kids, and like she
That's
got pregnant
rough.
like 7 months in, so like she's pregnant with our kid.
How
My
old
mom
are
died,
you
her
at this
dad died.
point?
I was 20.
20 years old. Married
Yeah.
after basically 2 to 4 months of dating. Man, and you both lose a parent and she gets pregnant 7 months in?
Yeah.
Ah!
So like no, we went over the cliff. It was just like
Wow.
But I mean, we stayed in university. Like that's always the fear of like if you get married and like you're just gonna drop out or whatever.
Mhm.
And like we stayed in college. We finished our degrees. We both graduated. We had our son in our second year, and like we were both working part time. We were still going to college. We were taking care of our son. So like we made it all work.
Yeah.
It was just like the hardest years of our entire lives with like so much fighting and bickering and like this is honestly the testimony of Jesus, because we would be divorced if we weren't in the church that we were, because they put such an emphasis on being in small groups and having like a local community who's there to like help you through this garbage.
Yeah.
And
Now,
so,
which church did you end up going to? Were you at the
Assemblies of God one?
the AG
Yeah, like,
church? Okay.
Yeah.
Got her.
Yeah. So
Holy Spirit's alive and well, baby.
Well, that was not without like tons of arguments with like people back at her home church, and like we went to a prophecy night, and the guy ended up like praying for us, and he like mentioned like, oh, you're pregnant, before we had any idea, and we were just like, what? And it's like 3 days later we find out, sure enough, she's actually pregnant. And then we tell this to like her like church people back home, and they're like, well, that's demons told him.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And we were just like, wait, so demons have power to communicate, but God doesn't. Why? What is this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so confused here. Like, how do we rationalize this?
Yeah. Totally.
Because my approach to the Bible is just like, how does this make sense? Like, does it line up like rationally?
Yeah.
And I just like sometimes I don't see certain people's perspectives, which like.
Yeah.
My wife says the benefit of not growing up in church. Like I can examine things from an outsider's perspective.
Totally.
Almost.
And it's interesting because it kind of, I don't know if you heard the BDK episode or not, but he kind of had a similar sort of a similar tipping point, I guess, at least at concerning this topic, which is like, we ascribe so much power to God, but a lot of times we don't necessarily believe or expect those miraculous things to happen, yet we're like, oh, demons are going to get you all around. Demons are doing everything. That's a demon. That's a demon. So it's interesting.
The spiritual power lies with the enemy, not with God.
Right,
because we have the Bible, so therefore we don't need spiritual power, or God doesn't need to use it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I just like that might be a reductionist stereotype, but that's like, obviously there's tons of intellectuals on that side of the argument who make a great case for it. I haven't been able to figure that one out myself.
Yeah.
So we got into small, like the first thing we did when we were married is like, we need to be in a married people small group. So like all of our community was older married couples, because we're in our sophomore year of college. Nobody else is married. Nobody else knows what like we're going through. Like we were living a completely different lifestyle than anybody else.
Yeah.
And
especially at a secular college.
Yeah, no. So we were so odd that they ended up doing a newspaper report on us because like one of the journalists was trying to like talk about like married couples in college, because in like the 1970s most of the dorms were for married couples, and like 40 to 50% of the college was married people. But in like when we were going to university, which was like 2008 to 2012, there like we didn't know a single other married couple who was in undergrad. Like graduate school, sure, but not your first 4 years.
Yeah.
And so we were such an odd specimen that they did a dedicated like we were in the newspaper because we were so odd.
So not only do you have all this going on, but now you have public scrutiny of your life choices.
Yeah, and that actually got me in trouble at work, because I was working at Walgreens at the time. And like the journalist like came in to observe me there, and like he just kind of detailed how like I always looked bored and like I'd never had enough to do.
Yeah.
And my boss brought the paper to me, and she was just like, "Oh, so you don't like your job?" And I was like, "What?" Like, I didn't write that. Like, he did that. Like he just observed me. I had no input on this. Please. I have a wife and kid at home. Don't take this job from me.
Please. I need this. Oh, that's so funny. Oop, Kitty's here to say hello. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Monty?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, it's one of the Monties.
Okay, so they're all Monty.
They're all Monty.
Okay.
But, well, they're all. It might as well be they're all. There's only two of them, but yes, this is the one that whenever I'm sitting in this chair, she knows I'm going to be here for a long time, and so she just won't leave me alone. Meow's right. Okay, so you got the newspaper article. You guys, man, I'm just blown away by like by this whole arrangement, and so young. Man, what was I doing when I was 20?
Well, I ended up doing youth ministry afterwards, and like I would tell some of the younger leaders who were like 19, 20, I was like, I was married and had a kid at your age. What are you doing with your life? Like you're slow. What was it like? What did your peers think? I mean, did they were just like, oh, like he's in a cult. Like he's following Jesus and he marries this girl. Like what sort of drugs does she have him on to like change him like this?
He's drank the Kool-Aid, man.
Essentially. And that even happened with like my dad and my sister. They were just like, you're in a cult. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm doing this intentionally. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Sydney's like deceiving you and bewitching you and manipulating you. And I was like, no, this is all free choice. And they're like, no, Brett, like you're in the wrong here. And I was like, no, I'm following Jesus. And they were like, okay, well then we don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, you know what's it's so interesting because from their perspective, I mean, that seems totally reasonable.
Oh, for sure. Like I did a complete like 180 in personality. I was like, I just was talking different, acting different. Like, just was like had a different personality, different outlook on life. Like I had joy and hope in my life
Yeah.
for like the first time ever. Like there's an objective reality and there's like external factors that make it so that like I can give value to other people and not just have to degrade them.
There are consequences to my actions.
Yes.
That's so funny.
Which like it's not like I grew up without consequences, but like it is kind of like I don't see like this is the logical side of like there's so much we do in this life that like basically necessitates that we have an objective perspective or there's like some sort of external value prescribed to people. Like that's how we operate. But there's nothing logically in the worldview today that indicates that that is so. And so like there's this disparity between the philosophy of this age and then like the practical outworking of everybody's life. And like I was just like I can't reconcile this anymore. Like either like it is like there is no objective truth and then we're all free to do whatever we want. Why do we have societal rules? Like this is me as an atheist. And then like either we need to own up to the fact that we actually believe what we believe, which is that like there is no external value prescribed to people, or we need to give credence to the fact that like maybe there is something beyond us. And yeah, like society's in a weird place where they're trying to like figure that out of having a worldview that doesn't reconcile with itself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's a very analytical, and it's so funny because it's that analytical thinking that tends to keep people away from faith.
Right, especially in college.
Yeah, especially in college. I mean, if you come into college with faith, it's this sort of analytical thinking that tends to draw people away. But the interesting thing is that it's that same analytical thinking that makes a lot of very smart people realize that what's going on with Jesus, whatever it may be, actually makes some sense. It actually connects more dots than it separates.
Yeah. Well, even if like logically people aren't understanding that, like it's coming out in like the Burning Man festivals. Like I listened to the CCR episode, like people are seeking this whether or not they know it. Mm-hmm. And so like it's coming across in our actions. We're just not being honest with how we actually perceive the world. Yeah, that's very interesting. And a lot of that has to do with cultural and social conditioning and, what our peers – I mean, the biggest what I've noticed is that a lot of the rejection of Christianity in particular versus other spiritualities or other spiritual worldviews – really does center around false perceptions on a lot of different sides. I mean, a lot of people now, of course, there are all sorts of different stories, and if there's one thing I've learned doing this show is don't really rely on generalities. But there are a lot of people where you just say the word Christian or Jesus, and they may have never stepped into a church in their life, and they just immediately get triggered at this sort of deep soul level for whatever reason. And, obviously it's because, in media ever since like the 80s, I would even say 60s, 70s, 80s, I mean, for decades, the bad guy in the movie is the like angry pastor or, it's the religious racists that don't do, those are the bad guys. It's just bred kind of into the culture, and I'm not trying to make, obviously that's not big revelation, but what it has done is really put in a preconceived, not just idea, but like emotional trigger in people, and getting past that trigger actually is a pretty analytical process. I mean, when you actually stop to think and learn what it's all about, you'll notice that most things that you hear in the media,
whatever it is, again, movies spanning back 40 years, it isn't necessarily the truth. It's just the message that this one artist was trying to get across, who may have, anyways, that's a whole big thing. But that's very fascinating. Your story is a very unique one that I'm enjoying very much.
That's good. Because it was quite the journey to live through.
I bet. Okay, so your friends thought you were in a cult, and they said, "Peace out, you crazy Christian."
Well, yeah, and then also, like, I personally distanced myself because, like, I realized the debauchery that they were getting up to.
Yeah.
And I wasn't at the point where I knew that if I were to spend time with them, I wouldn't be witnessing to them. I would just be enjoying the same things. Like, I would just slide right back into my old lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just felt the call of God to like separate myself from those things in order to like figure out like what holiness even means in the first place, because that's a brand new concept to me of like actually being different and like having standards and like boundaries, and like all of it was so fresh to me.
Yeah.
So I distanced myself from my friends. I distanced myself from my family, not because like I didn't like them, but because I realized that like they were actively not trying to help me follow Jesus. And so we were in a small group that like accepted us and like had gone through the exact same things, like college educated adults with children, like married couples, and they like helped us sort out all of the crap that we were going through. And like they would invite us over to fight in front of them just so that they could like referee our arguments and make sure that like we're like even as we're fed up with each other, we're still loving Jesus through our like anger and rage that's coming out in the passions of the first year of marriage.
Yeah. Wow. That must have been very entertaining.
I'm not sure entertaining is the right word for it, but it
just depends for who.
I guess externally you would have had a good chuckle.
Yeah, well, dang, man, it's just thrown into the thick of it. And then where in the world did you guys get the idea? I mean, she got pregnant 7 months in, and you must have gone to South Africa pretty quick after that.
No, actually. No. So we had our first son in 2011. We didn't get to South Africa till 2015.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So another condition of marrying my wife was that we were not going to live in the United States for all of our lives. She made it very clear that her life goal was to be a missionary. And I was just like, well, that makes sense. Jesus definitely wants us to go wherever. So I'm down for that. Like, I don't want to make it seem like she was dragging me along, because she definitely wasn't.
No, she's just like strong-willed. This lady,
yeah, like
something
she
else.
knew what she wanted, and I needed to either conform to that or she would find somebody else. And so I was just like, okay, like I think we can work this out. So like from the very beginning, our perspective of our marriage was like, we're going to be missionaries someday. So we got out of debt from like student loans as fast as possible. We decided we're not going to buy a house. Like, we're always going to rent. We're going to maintain jobs that like will allow us the flexibility to leave whenever God calls us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how we like lived the first few years of our marriage. Just making sure that we are available for when God was finally going to tell us to go.
Okay. And what did that involve? What was what were those jobs? You were preparing for this, and that's fantastic. But what jobs allowed you to leave to South Africa?
Well, firstly, it was like retail. I was working at Walgreens, then I was working at Jason's Deli.
Okay, so just not getting too committed to anything there.
Not trying to start a career, but like after I graduated university, I ended up becoming an intern at a church, and like just trying to figure like I wanted to be in ministry. So I got like credentialed through the Assemblies of God during that year, and was working in the children's and youth ministry, like under the pastors. And so like trying to develop the ministry side of things. And my wife, like she's actually a lactation consultant, like fully board certified and everything. And she was pursuing that. after she got her degree in biology from the university, and when she had our son, she was just like, breastfeeding's not really a big thing in America. Let's this will be useful. So I'll
Dude,
pursue this. And
what?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's the perspective of the benefits of breastfeeding versus formula and
Oh, yeah, let me be clear. I'm all about breastfeeding, which is the weirdest thing I've ever said on this show. And I totally get it and am on board. But your wife, man, is something else, brother.
No, she's amazing. And once she figures out what she wants to do, there's basically no stopping her.
Yeah.
She was a world-class fencer. She was getting straight A's in university, all honors classes, just doing amazing things because she's just so driven and motivated. And she thought she wanted to become a doctor, but after she had her son, she was just like, women need help with this, so this is what I'm going to do.
Wow. World-class fencer. I just have to stop commenting because it's just everything is building and building on itself, and I'm starting the image that I'm building of her personality and cognitiveness is just starting to unravel in my mind. It's becoming so complicated and deep. So,
well, I mean, I do have to question her judgment too a little bit if she married me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What was she thinking?
Video game player.
Okay, all right. So continue. So she became the lactation consultant. Didn't know that was a thing. Do now.
So, well, that was a 5-year process. She worked for the government, for the WIC program, teaching mothers how to breastfeed there, getting clinical hours to take the exam. Because typically only nurses or actual doctors become lactation consultants because it requires you actually have physical hands-on time as well as being educated about it. So we found this minimum wage job for the government where she could help mothers with that. So she took that job while I was being an intern at a church, and we were just raising our son. We were both working part-time, trying to make it everything work, knowing eventually God would call us to the missions field at some point. And it came about in 2013. She was pregnant with our second son, and my internship was coming to an end at the church, and they didn't want to bring me on full time. They said they didn't have the money. Mm-hmm. And then my wife was going to quit her job so that she could take care of our second son. And we were just like, we don't know what we're going to do with our lives. What's the next step? And so I prayed about it, and I felt like the Lord told me, you're going to do nothing, and I'm just going to give you something.
Ooh, and that's always fun.
No, I told my wife, and she was like, Jesus doesn't say those things. You need to actively go out and pursue getting a job. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure, it was very clear. And she was just like, okay, I guess. But the Bible says those who don't provide for their household are worse than an unbeliever.
That's some real, that's some real Baptist. She's showing her colors.
Yeah. And sure enough, one day we get a phone call from a missionary friend who was in South Africa. We had met him just during the time that we our first few years of marriage, and he phones us and he's just like, what are you doing? And I was like, we don't really know. And he was like, do you want to come be a pastor in South Africa? And I was like, wow. Pretty sure the answer is yes. Let me talk to my wife.
Wow.
But it just confirmed everything that God had been speaking to us for the first 3 years of what we'd been preparing for that moment. God told me not to pursue anything, and I hadn't talked to the guy in over a year, and he just phones me because he's like, we need help here. So I know you guys wanted to be missionaries. Will you come?
Wow, that's amazing. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
and there you are.
Yes. Yeah. So our second son was born with some really rough, he has sensory processing disorder, as well as he wasn't breathing when he was born, and he had feeding aversion, which meant that he wouldn't eat unless he was like falling asleep, or you had to like shove food down his throat with a syringe.
Wow.
Like milk, not food, not like
Yeah.
physical food. So like,
What an interesting disorder for your son to have, given your
yeah.
wife's specialization.
Well, that's the only reason we got through it, because otherwise, like, he would have had to have been in the hospital. It was only because she had enough knowledge that she was able to keep him fed and keep him healthy, and not like, because like she would spend 10 hours a day pumping out milk so that like she could have enough when he was ready to eat.
Yeah.
And like that just changed our entire life, of like she was dedicated to taking care of him exclusively, while we like had already committed to going to be missionaries. So we don't have jobs. We have to like fundraise to keep our life afloat. And during that time, like I start like trying to find at-home jobs, and I end up working for a call center. And like at one point I ended up working for Google as like a search engine evaluator, because
yeah.
I just had to piece everything together to keep us afloat while we're trying to get to South Africa. Our son like doesn't eat, and like if you try to feed him, he just screams at you. Like if he was awake and you try to feed him, he's screaming at you, which is horrible. It's like in any normal circumstance, like he would have been malnourished, and like we would have to take him to the hospital to get like an IV drip. But because like my wife was doing such a good job keeping up with the demands of actually feeding him herself, like when we would take him to the pediatrician, they'd be like, "What's wrong with him? He looks healthy." And we were just like, "No, you don't understand. Like we're dedicating our entire lives to making sure he is like this."
It's really hard. My wife is literally a specialist in this.
Yeah. She doesn't like to bring that up when she's in conversations with doctors. Like she just lets them spout like things that are factually incorrect.
Very
and doesn't correct them. And I sit there and I'm just like, just tell them you know more about this than they do. Like, let's just get that out there and move on.
She holds her tongue.
Yes, yeah,
she's as wise as a serpent.
Oh, so earlier this year in South Africa, we just had our third son here, and he was like sick. He couldn't breathe, and we were getting on the airplane to go back to America the next day. So we like needed medication, but it was like 3 a.m. There's no 24-hour pharmacies here. So we take him to the hospital. And the first words out of the doctor's mouth when we're in the ER to just like get some sort of antibiotic or something, he was like, "That kid's really fat. What are we going to do to feed him going forward?" What? And we were just like, "You didn't even ask us what the problem is. Like you just," he was like, he said to my wife, "You don't look big enough to feed him. Like we have to think about supplementing him." It just like came out of nowhere. And we were just like, "But we're here because this kid can't breathe. And he's sick and we need medication." Right. And the doctor's just like, you weigh 105 pounds. You're clearly not big enough to feed this child.
Right. Wow.
And she just holds her tongue, and she's just like, I'm going to like write a letter to the hospital afterwards explaining how terrible their practices are and how much information their doctors need.
Wow. Okay. So by now you're saying you're over in South Africa, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're there. You're in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
You've made it. You've been planning for this missionary life. You get off the plane. You meet the person you're there to meet. That's got to be a pretty crazy culture shock.
It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Really?
And that's like, it's honestly, for me being an introvert, my wife's had a harder time. But like, my entire like entertainment value was always on the internet, and like I have the internet here, and so like a majority of my life stays the same. Like I was listening to Canary Cry Radio and Canary Cry News Talk before I got here. No, I think you guys started CCNT after I got here, but like Canary Cry Radio, like it's still going on. Like it's a continue. Like there's these things in my life that have remained constant that have made it easy to like. Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
We remained a constant in your ever-shifting life.
And playing video games, kind of the same here.
Yeah,
like
there you go. Same thing.
I can I can have my me time exactly the same as I used to have it in the States.
Yeah. That's why
So
introverts are just objectively better. High five.
agreed. Yes,
That was a good internet high five.
I agree. Um,
Just
yeah,
kidding, extroverts. You guys are cool too. Just got to cover my bases there.
ministry is definitely different here. And like there's no doubt that there is a cultural like disparity that we have to be very sensitive to, and like we're actively always thinking of how life is different here. But like it's like on one hand, I feel like God gave us like the baby missionary assignment because like we
Mm.
don't have to learn a language. Like everybody kind of speaks English as like at
Mm.
least a second, third, or fourth language.
Right.
Because like South Africa is such a diverse country. Like there's 11 official national languages.
11
And
official national languages?
yes, yeah,
Wow.
11.
That's incredible.
And so like if you meet somebody on the street, you don't know what they speak. Like
Yeah.
everybody speaks a different language like as their home tongue. And so like when they're out and about in society, like English is the official language of business here. And so like our church that we're working with here like has so many different like refugees and people from other countries, like from the Congo, from Uganda, from Zimbabwe, Mozambique. Like we have so many different countries that gather on a Sunday that like if we did a service in any one particular language besides English,
Yeah.
like people wouldn't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah. Hey, so you're lucking out. That works pretty good for you.
Yeah, I mean we have other missionary friends who are like Bulgaria and they have to learn like how to read Cyrillic and like it's a totally different lifestyle that they're living, and I'm just like, oh, I get to speak English. And like I feel like we're like still in training almost. Like God has us here and it's not quite the completeness of eventually where he's going to take us.
Now, what exactly does the ministry do? I mean, if they just needed a pastor, couldn't they just get a pastor, a South African pastor? I mean, was there what are you
So
doing over there?
yeah, our church here in Pretoria is unique in a few different ways. Like first of all, like South Africa is still coming out of apartheid. Like that only ended like 24 years ago, which like systemic racism implemented by the government. Like like America's still feeling the aftershocks of like the civil rights movement and segregation.
Hmm.
Like it's even much more so here in South Africa, but with like the diversity that exists. It's not just like a black and white issue. It's also like different tribes versus other tribes.
Mm.
And like South Africans like there's also this like xenophobic sentiment as well. Like foreigners are coming into South Africa to take jobs from South Africans
Sounds
because like
familiar.
yeah, it's true to some extent, but like there's this like always underlying hostility that people kind of have towards one another.
Yeah.
And so it's very common for like churches to be for one specific group of people. Like
Mm.
there's like the Zulu church, then there's the Afrikaans church, then there's the Xhosa church, and like you keep separate even in church. And it's not uncommon to have like white churches here that will kick black people out if they show up,
Really?
or like like black churches that will kick out Zimbabweans if they show up. And so like there's this South Africa is a great diverse place, but it also comes with a lot of emotional baggage. And our church is like we're unique because we encourage everybody to come. Like it's not normal to have a church service where we welcome refugees from other countries while also like wanting native South Africans to be here as well. Uh, and because like the congregation is mostly like people from like who had to escape their country for economic reasons, like there's no money to pay a pastor. Like even our current like head pastor, he's a full-time defense engineer during the week, and like
Huh.
he finances the ministry. And so like the only way to like get somebody else to come and help is if like they're willing to accept an unpaid position, which like American missionaries, that's like we
that's
go in for
that's the
free.
bread and butter, baby.
Yeah. So
Which is no bread or butter. You just show up and do the job.
so we're very much more doing like traditional church ministry in like an urban setting more than we are like do like I don't even know what a normal missionary is, but everybody has these like preconceived notions of what they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like we very much just feel like we're pastors here more than like we're trying to reach the natives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, from what you've told me, it sounds like the work you're doing is pretty like heavy and revolutionary and like just living in this tension of the xenophobia and the all the crazy tribal stuff, and I mean kicking people out of churches. I mean, you can say a lot about what's going on in America, but well, at least around me that's not happening. I don't want to claim it's not happening anywhere around here, but
Right.
but you know, I haven't heard of it happening to anybody I know. Or, you know, whatever. You get what I'm saying.
Well, like groups will set up like official protests with the government against like foreigners, and then they'll walk through like downtown Pretoria and like burn down like businesses that are owned by foreigners. And this isn't everybody. Like,
yeah.
Like I like South Africa is so diverse that this doesn't apply to everyone, because like there is also a lot of like love and acceptance and like that does exist. But then there's also this like contingency that is like very like we like Zimbabweans just can't go into Pretoria some days when these protests are happening for fear of their life. So they just stay home, they stop work, like they're just like they don't go anywhere.
Yeah. That's so fascinating. And this is, I mean, that's been going on for a while, right? That's some like real deep-seated tension in that community.
Yeah, I mean, it's like on the one hand, it's very much true that like there's this giant population of illegal immigrants who come to South Africa. Like that's an undeniable statistic. So I can understand like people feeling like their jobs are being taken. But like one of the reasons like why apartheid was so successful, as far as like not in the like this was a great thing that happened successful, but more like it accomplished its purposes, was not because like the government set white people against black people, but because they set everybody against each other. And so like
just complete disunity.
Yes. Yeah. So like there's hundreds of like political parties here, and everybody's pointing fingers at one another, like blaming everybody else for their problems. And like one of the interesting things that like we found out when we got here is like as Americans, you hear about Nelson Mandela and you think like he's this great like peaceful guy that everybody respects.
Yeah.
But then like there's people here in South Africa who think that he didn't take things far enough. Like he should have like completely gotten rid of the white people. And like that, like there's people in political power in parliament who say these things in a public forum. Like the white people should be gone. They don't belong here. And so there's still tension, and there's still the leftover anger and hostility towards like each other. And like there's a remnant of white people that like have like walled themselves off in their own city in the middle of nowhere, waiting for the black people to come and take their guns. And like they're forming like militias to like fight against the government when that finally happens. And so like it all exists in this like bubble of like South Africa is an experiment that like you don't see in most other nations as far as like how diverse it actually is. Like America's more diverse, but it's I don't know how to like, at least in America, typically like everybody speaks the same language. Everybody speaks English. Like we're all coming from this background, and then like it's an us versus them against the world. But like in South Africa, everybody's different from each other. And like when they go home, they speak a completely different language. They have a completely different culture that like other people don't understand. And so like as much as we're foreigners here in South Africa, like we kind of have a similar experience as to what South Africans would have, because everybody's kind of different to each other anyways.
That's so fascinating. I had no idea that that was what South Africa was like. Honestly, Brett, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm going to open up to you right now. The only thing that every piece of knowledge that I know about South Africa before this conversation came from the movie District 9.
There are not giant alien shrimp-looking things roaming around.
I believe you, but at the same time, from what you're telling me, that movie had a lot more political significance than what me as an American was understanding watching it.
No, it's definitely an allegory. That as well as Chappie, like Neil Blomkamp is telling the story of South Africa through this like radically different like environment. So
yeah, it's very fascinating. Wow, so funny. So I mean that's hey, you know what? You kind of were kind of skirting around, saying you kind of had it easy as a missionary, but I mean, as far as a culture goes, I mean that's just as, I would say that, I mean that sounds more dangerous than America, certainly. I mean, we've got our own little militias and we've got our own racial tensions and things like that. But from what you're describing, I mean, that is not necessarily a peaceful environment to go just waltz around and invite everybody to come into a church service.
Yeah, well, a typical South African house has like 6 to 8 foot like bricked walls with like barbed wire at the top and electric fences. Like that's, our house has that, and like that's just how houses come, because so this is like the difficult part to navigate. Like there's conspiracy theory videos out on YouTube like talking about like what it's like to live in South Africa, and most of them are just like sensationalism and like talking to the most like the people who best serve their point rather than to an everyday South African.
Yeah.
And like it's not as bad as like it can be portrayed in the media, but like it does exist. Like we don't go out at night at all because it's just dangerous. Like the walls exist for a reason. Like my wife was driving home after dark one night because she was stayed out too late, and like she got smash and grabbed at a traffic light. Like,
oh my gosh.
The guy came up with a brick, broke the window, took her bag, and they ran.
Oh my gosh.
And like carjackings are not uncommon here. Like the statistics of crime are quite high. So like that's probably the hardest cultural thing to deal with, is just like we have a different mentality as to what it means to be safe here.
Yeah.
And like driving is not a passive experience. You're always looking like in your rear view mirrors, you're looking around, making sure that nobody's coming up to your window like while you're stopped. And like church ministry doesn't happen after dark, which is like not usual for us. Like everything happened in the evenings, but like here it just kind of can't, because there's always that fear of like something could happen to people, and it does on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Not like we do, like, not to say that things stop at night, but like for the most part you avoid like having church meetings in the evenings. And like it's just relegated for the weekends.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you got like, you got babies, man. You got babies and a tiny wife who can fence people, but if she doesn't have her foil,
yeah,
you gotta watch out.
So she was, when she got smash and grab, she actually ended up kicking the guy in the face while he was taking the bag. But like I don't understand how she did it, because like you think like you're sitting in the driver's seat of a car.
It's those small people, man. Those small people, they work with different laws of physics than us.
Exactly. Like I tried to replicate getting my foot up over like the shifter, and I just like I wouldn't be able to kick the guy.
You would have been done for. You would have stole your bag, your wallet, the glasses off your face, the shirt off your back. Yeah, that's so funny. Well, that's okay. Well, I get it. I mean, that's serious business, and I've been in parts of the world like that. Every house has an 8-foot wall with glass spikes and barbed wire, and it's just every house has it, and it's for a reason. It's not for nothing. And yep, certainly I've gone out and done my own missionary work where, my handlers, our contacts there are like, no, it's after 5. You just stay there. We'll bring you some food if you need it. Like you can't come out here.
Like all shops close down at like around 6:00.
Yeah.
Like everybody goes home. There's no there's not really a nightlife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now here's a question for you. Now we're coming up on 2 hours, so there's a couple things I wanna get the story on. Number one is, how in the world are you talking to me and listening to Gons and I after coming through everything that you came through? Where did that start? And then I want to talk about your YouTube channel. Okay.
So let's start with the first one. That first small group we were in when I got married, I was introduced to Chuck Missler, which started me down like Genesis 6, obviously. Yeah. And that led to like the circle that you guys are in is just like surrounded by that.
Yeah, totally.
And I think how I specifically found you guys, like through Chuck Missler, like I just started researching all of these other things. And then eventually I think I got to the Vigilant Christians YouTube channel. And he talked about meeting with Gons when he was down in California. And I was just like, who are these people? Because he was talking about his YouTube channel and like the podcast. And so I was just like, I need to check this out, because I was very much into like podcasts at that point. I was listening to Chuck Missler's 6640. I was listening to like Ravi Zacharias, John Piper, like everybody I could get a podcast for, like their sermons. I was listening to them.
Yeah.
And so I found Canary Cry Radio through the Vigilant Christian, actually, not through Age of Deceit. I found Age of Deceit afterwards.
Cha-ching, points for Mario. And maybe the second episode where Age of Deceit came after something else.
Yes. No, I can wear that as a badge of pride.
Yeah, very good. You're
on the Joy Conspiracy Theory, not finding Gons first. I found you guys together.
Much like you are in your missionary work, you are a minority around here.
Yes. But I like, one of the things that I very much appreciate about you and Gons is that you take the conspiracy stuff seriously, but not to the extent that it is like all you talk about. Like you seem like normal guys who approach the world through a biblical lens, instead of like the biggest issue I have with like conspiracy theories is just like, it's like an us versus them mentality. Like everybody's out to get us. Like
right.
It's turning this world into like this hostile place that's like really like everything goes wrong. Like anytime something happens, there's a conspiracy for it.
Yeah.
And like on one hand, like, yes, I can understand that worldview, but on the other hand, that's a really rough life to live, of like always anticipating that, which is why I'm so thankful for the Joy Conspiracy Theory, that like this is not everything it's about. Like
like we're living lives here, people. It's not just about the Illuminati. We got other stuff going on. We got babies that need to eat. We got other fat babies and bad doctors.
The biggest thing that like I've kind of realized, like being in South Africa, like thinking about conspiracy theories and being involved in them is like very much just like a place of privilege.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I can concern myself with the flat earth is only because like I know I'm going to eat today.
Totally.
Like I don't have to work 7 days a week, 12 to 15 hours a day, and spend 2 hours transporting to get to my job. Like it's been really humbling to like do ministry with the people that we do, because you just recognize like wow, like a lot of the things that I like enjoy are just like I have the privilege of doing this. Like
Yeah.
the Illuminati, who can concern themselves with that when like you don't know if you can send your kid to school?
Right. Totally, man. I totally get that, and I agree. I don't know if I've ever made this an explicit point, but you just pointed out something fantastic, which is, the fact that we're even able to take the time to think about the Illuminati, is a blessing. I mean, there are people in this world. I mean, in America alone, there are people who don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And the only people who don't know where their next meal is going to come from, who are also like worried about the Illuminati, like are usually kind of nuts and like on the street and like throwing stuff at passersby. Now, if there's somebody out there who listens to this show and you're in a tough financial situation and you're awake to everything going on, I don't mean to pick you out. I just mean, it's an opportunity for us to count our blessings, because there are people all over this world who, instead of getting an opportunity to even listen to a podcast or have the means to do so, they have to walk 6 hours to a tiny, dirty pond to pick up water for their family and walk back with it on their head. I mean,
yeah,
it's when you try to put it in perspective, that's definitely kind of a genesis of the way we approach these things is like the fact that we even have the time and the energy and the computers to sit here and make a podcast means we don't have that much to complain about. And
sure,
if we have to kind of like, I mean, human beings are really good at finding things to complain about, and conspiracy theories is kind of like the top notch of that. Like, there's so little for me to complain about. I have to complain about like a hidden, shadowy group of elites who are so distant from me. Anyways, I don't want to offend anybody who has issues. We all have issues. I certainly have issues that I have to think about during the day. But yeah, anyways, I've made my point.
Yeah. Well, like just like thinking like we have to be concerned about Monsanto and GMOs and Bayer buying Monsanto and like this giant conspiracy of like the world's food population. It's like on an external level, I see why that's a problem, and I do like I think we need to be against that. But then on the other side, I see people who like they can only afford like rice meal or cornmeal that's like made by Monsanto, and like that's what they get to eat every day.
Right.
And for me to be like, don't you know that's GMOs? Don't you know that you're serving this like the globalists at this point? Like, it's just such a different perspective of like, I view like listening to you guys as like my entertainment. Like it's my escape from like what normal reality is actually like.
Yeah,
Even though it is normal reality that like there is this like cabal that's trying to like usher in the age of the beast or the coming beast system, and like Bitcoin's going to be the mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff like that exists. Yes. But on another level, the day-to-day life of actually a majority of people in this world, they can't concern themselves with this.
You just can't do it. Because if you're too concerned about GMOs, how are you going to eat? How are you going to feed your kids? Especially if you're in a situation, that demands that you take advantage of some of the more economically available food created by GMO and stuff like that. So
But then on the other perspective, like it then like gives the burden of the people who know about these things and are in the place of privilege to discuss it, to like actually do something about it for the people who can't.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like learning about like the globalist conspiracy. It's like, what are you going to do about it? Like, because it's fine for me to learn about like the 9/11 conspiracy, but then like, how does that practically apply? Like, how do I reconcile that with making sure that like the next president we elect is going to do that? Or do I even involve myself in the political system because it's all just a sham anyways?
Right.
There's practical questions that come about that like especially like us as believers, we can't, like, I don't think we can have the perspective that it's happening to us, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we very much have authority in Jesus to change the world. Like, we're called to go out and make disciples. Like, that's our first and foremost call as believers and followers of Jesus. And so, like, the Bible is replete with people who followed God and then also changed society. And like, I viewed that, like, that's what this realm is, of like, we're informed on the things that are happening behind the scenes, not so that we can be informed, but so that we can actually use it to make disciples, to change the world, and to actually usher in God's kingdom in whatever way that happens.
So good. Preach it, brother. Yeah, all the way from South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, Brother Brett. That's your new name, Brother Brett.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Okay, good. No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I've nothing to add to that. You killed it right there. And you know, as far as going back to the worldview part of it, and kind of the, I think, you know what, I think that was a very important thing for some people to hear. I just wanted to say that I got that feeling. I got that feeling in my gut. I know that some people will have been made uncomfortable with, you know, Basil talking about the privilege of thinking about conspiracy theories. But I think that that's a really important point for the whole, you know, community. And I think, you know, my listeners are good people. I think they're all on board, and you probably got amens all over the world right there. But that, you know, that's a really important thing for people to take into consideration, because you can get just consumed. Your whole world can get consumed with this stuff if you're not careful.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I've continued to listen. Like, out of every conspiracy theory that I've ever been involved in, you guys are the only ones that, like, I actively want to continue to listen to, just because it feels like you have the healthy understanding of, like, how to approach everything.
Well, thank you very much. That's a high compliment. And speaking of continuing to listen to your favorite content producers,
yes.
You have a huge YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's like comparable to Gonz's.
Yeah.
Now, what is that?
So, like, as I mentioned, like, going out at night in South Africa, just not a thing. So, like, I needed a hobby.
Yeah.
And, like, I've always been into technology, obviously, gamer, that kind of thing. And I was watching all of these people on YouTube, and I just felt like the Lord told me, like, you either need to make your own content, or you just need to stop watching everybody. Because like, you're just like, you're a consumer.
Yeah.
You're not actually giving anything. And so I was like, dang, okay, well, let me go ahead and try making videos. And I made like 2 or 3 when we were still in the States, and they were all bad and terrible and not good.
As
but
the first ones always are.
Yeah. As we were in South Africa, and I just needed something to do at night, I just started making like tech YouTube videos. And like within 6 months, I was the largest tech YouTube channel in South Africa, because there's like no competition. like like at 3,000 subscribers, I've beaten everybody. And like, it just kind of opened up the opportunity of like once I was the biggest, like, then I could ask companies to like send me products to do videos on.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I just started getting like free stuff and like companies sponsoring me. And like, eventually it turned into the point where I was just like, wow, like, I could actually make a living off of this if I really try. And like, my wife and I prayed about it, and like, we consulted with our church leadership, and like, really tried to figure out, like, is this appropriate? Like I'm dealing with like some high-end technology stuff that's like worth thousands of dollars, while at the same time, every single Sunday I'm ministering to people who make less than $2 a day.
Yeah.
And so it's like this super weird like balance in my life that like we were just like, what do we do? And I felt like the Lord wanted me to pursue this and to have my wife step more into the ministry role. And so I've pulled back from ministry a bit since we've been here,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can provide for our ministry. Because one of the things that like I think we are always uncomfortable about being missionaries is taking other people's money.
Yeah.
Like that's the hardest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it like on one hand, it like I get that people feel called by the Lord to give, but on the other hand, like I guess I don't want to be personally accountable to them
Yeah.
for like I bought a burrito. I don't want you to judge me now that I've spent your money that you think is for missions on feeding myself. Like
Totally true though. So true.
like it's never been this way for the people who support us, but like it's always in the back of your mind that you're like dependent on them and like kind of like they own you to a slight extent.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have a piece of what you're doing, which like is how it's pitched of like you get to be involved and this is like if you can't go, give, like that type of idea. But it just never really sat well with us of
Mm-hmm.
like we always wanted to be like the term is a tent making missionary like Paul was, where like we have our own economically viable skills that we engage in while we do ministry. And YouTube like just kind of evolved into that. Um, and it wasn't without a lot of prayer and deciding like, okay, this is what God wants me to do. I can absolutely see He's opening up doors. He's confirming it to me. He's confirming it to everybody else that like my wife is going to do more ministry and I'm going to pursue this secular career of informing tech people about tech stuff. And like it it doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how I'm where I'm at because like I like I'm South Africa's largest tech YouTuber, and we're like the 48th largest tech or YouTube channel in South Africa overall. Like we bring in like 1 million views a month, which is like so weird. Like
That's, I
it just
mean, yeah, that's especially in the days of where all us fringy guys are getting censored on YouTube.
right.
For you to be pulling in 1 million views a month is huge.
Yeah, and like I've really tried to make sure that it's not lost on me, like how bizarre this opportunity is.
Yeah.
And like the fact that I can provide for our ministry by like reaching into a secular culture and like I don't talk about my faith on the channel. I don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about our work. Like it only comes up in passing that like we work at a church because that's not like what the channel's about.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about tech. So, but um just it's such a like a great place, but like we want to use it to serve what we're doing here. And so like as soon as like the first checks started rolling in from like AdSense, I started hiring people in order to like help make this like a sustainable venture
Yeah.
and like actually turn it into like we can put out videos every single day and then we can make videos that people actually want to see. But then like we're actually supporting the local economy. We're supporting people that like we love and know, and like we want to create this into like a ministry opportunity, not just like not just like I'm a big fancy tech YouTuber who has all the like best new equipments and the new iPhones and the new like everything.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to become that. I want it like my vision is that I want to empower South Africans to learn how to use like the privileges that are before us with social media in order to provide for themselves. Because like there's this huge market out there for like the influencer economy. And like not from a jaded perspective of like everybody can do this, because not everybody can, but
Yeah.
like the opportunity is there. Like if you have a unique voice and a unique perspective, like you bring value to people, and like we're in the age where like you can get paid for that. Like you guys have Patreon. Like that didn't exist a few years ago. Like when I first started listening to Canary Cry Radio, I'm pretty sure Patreon wasn't even established as a company.
Yeah, for sure.
And like now it exists that like people will actively support the content that they love. And I like that's such an opportunity for people, especially in a country like South Africa, where it's either like you can make minimum wage on YouTube or you can make minimum wage like slaving away, like just doing manual labor. And it's like well, the opportunity, like there's two different opportunities there, and like I want to make it available for people, if that makes any sense.
No, that's amazing. I mean, that's an amazing story and an amazing opportunity, and you got a good head on your shoulders, my friend. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that it basically is ministry. I mean, the way you describe it to me, that's a huge aspect of doing good in the world and making the world a better place in the name of Christ and using resources to fulfill that purpose, man. I mean, that's just amazing. Thank God for that opportunity. And man, I gotta say, I was checking out those videos, my man. There's good quality videos, good content. Got a charismatic guy telling me all about the new the crypto mining equipment there. I know how to make my first crypto mining computer now. I'm gonna get right on that. And in fact, I'm gonna give you a warning. I've got some questions for you after the show.
Okay. Everybody check out canarycryradio.com/crypto.
Yeah, that's right. canarycryradio.com/crypto. Anyways, yeah, I would actually like your opinion on that as well, but we'll talk about that after.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man. Anyways, you're doing great. That's such a cool ministry that you're doing down there, and such a cool way that God set up the resources to equip you, not just you, but the whole ministry, and also just, having such a big economic influence in a community also is just such a great way to bless people. And I think you realize that. So that's great.
Well, like it's such a I just don't even understand what I'm doing half the time. Like I did a 24-hour charity live stream to like raise funds for not our church, but like an NGO that's affiliated with our church.
Uh-huh.
And like I played video games for 24 hours and we ended up raising $6,000 for the NGO.
Wow.
And like half of that came from a company that we work with, like for the channel, and they were just like, we'll match any donation that comes in up to $3,000. They don't follow Jesus. They don't know anything. Like they're not believers. And yet like, they were just like, yeah, we're going to give you all this money. And like, I'm standing there playing video games and like people are just giving their money away, which is so, it just, why do people donate? I don't get it.
I don't know either, but I'm so grateful for it.
Absolutely.
Oh man, that is so cool. Yeah, well, you must have heard Gonz and I were talking about doing a Twitch stream too.
I did.
So
yes.
You might need to help us out with that as well. You're going to be the official Canary Cry tech consultant.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good. You're hired. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, okay. So at the risk of going too long, I need to ask you about your little pal, your little furry pal.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me. You have a dog in South Africa.
Yes. I'm actually, my asthma is triggered by allergies. And so like I can't really have pets.
And
but
yet...
like I love dogs. And so like it's always this conflicting thing of like I want one, but I won't be able to breathe if they're around.
It is a tough decision. I get it.
Yeah, but thankfully we moved into a house that has like a decent yard. And so like the dog can stay outside most of the time and like come inside at night to sleep. I just can't like touch the dog. It's just like, hi, I wave at it from a distance.
Oh, so you haven't found a solution for this. You're just living.
No, like if my sons like play with her, like they have to go wash their hands before I can touch them again.
I thought you were gonna say like, oh, but I just have to take a pill, or oh, I just get acupuncture or something is fine. No, you just live.
I live in suffering, basically.
You live a separate life from your family who has a dog, basically.
Yeah. Well, so I'm the one who initiated the dog search because I love dogs. I just don't touch them.
You love looking at them.
Yes. And so like we were going to get a dog, like we were going to the animal shelters around here. And like we got through the process, we found the right dog, and at the end they're just like, "Oh, you're not South African citizens. You're not allowed to have the dog." And we were just
Whoa.
like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah, we have to check on the animal every 6 months because it's like through the official government adoption agency." And we were like, "Okay, that doesn't make any sense. You don't even check on adopted children that often." Like, there's no way you're. They were just like, "Yeah, we can't have you leaving the country with the animal or anything like that."
What?
And so, like,
I mean,
we left that.
I kind of get it, but also why?
I don't.
They're
like,
so attached to the dog.
Yeah, I don't know. Like they're overflowing with way too many strays, and like they just like we're a model family. Like we're loving, we're caring, we have stable income, we have a stable house. Like we're gonna take care of the pet. Like just give us the dog. And they said no. So like kids are upset. They're like, we thought we had the one, and so we end up going for a walk when my wife is 9 months pregnant because we're trying to get the baby out. And we see down the road there's like this little dog thing running across the street, or like, okay, like clearly escaped. We need to take it home and figure out who its owner is.
Did you just describe your future pet as a dog thing?
I may have. She's this weird mixture between a Dachshund and a Jack Russell Terrier. So she has like the spirited energy of a Jack Russell, but the elongated body that makes it so she physically can't do the things her spirit wants her to do.
She's trapped.
Yes.
She's limited.
So we pick her up off the street, we bring her home, and we take her on a walk down the neighborhood to try and find her owners. And her owners come running out, and they're like, "Oh, you found our dog," except they're speaking in a different language. So like we're trying to figure out what's going on. And then they're just like, "We were looking for a place for her anyways. You take her."
Really?
And we were like, "Yeah." We were like, "Oh, okay, that's great." So we bring her home, and we find out exactly why they're looking for a different place, because she escapes out of every single crevice that exists, and she does not come back. She has no sense of what home is. Yes.
That's so funny.
And like, it's clear that she's been through multiple homes. She's probably been abused at some point. Because like the best interaction I can give her is like rubbing her with my shoe. And like she just cowers in fear at me. I can't show her affection, so she doesn't know I like her. So she's like constantly terrified of me. But like I love her. I just like I can only pet her with the rubber parts of my shoe.
What a beautiful love story. That's so funny. Well, she sounds great. What's her name?
Noble.
Wow.
Yes, my kids watched. There's a Transformers cartoon where the rescue dog is named Noble, so that's where she got her naming from.
Hey, well, that's pretty cute. What's South African television like? This is just Basil's curious about Africa now.
Yeah, we don't have television. It's expensive here. Like it starts at like $60 a month for like any sort of like good channels. And so we just pay for internet and like Netflix. That's basically our entertainment.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
Like it's basically like you could expect like bad soap operas.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's And actually, my video editor for the channel, he's actually an actor on one of the terrible soap operas.
No way! That is so funny.
He gets recognized in public way more than I do.
That's so funny. Yeah. When I was in Africa, I was watching just some TV that was just in the hotel we were staying in, and it's all. I mean, it would barely pass. It wouldn't pass as a watchable YouTube like video, but that was like their daily like main popular television shows. It was pretty incredible. I was like, I need to just move to Africa and make a TV show. That's my ticket, baby.
Yeah, people even in South Africa don't really watch TV anymore. Like it's to the point that the cable companies are trying to ban Netflix because everybody's just converting over.
Really?
Yeah. Instead of dropping their prices and like adding like incentives for people to sign up, they're just like, no, Netflix is the devil and we need to get rid of them because they're taking all of our revenue.
That's very interesting. All right. Well, okay. How are you eating down there in Africa? What's going on there? South Africa.
Pretty normally. Yeah, so like this is also part of like the baby missionary experience where I feel like God just like is giving us the soft experience because like we can live a very American lifestyle if we choose. Like
Yeah.
there is a Starbucks right down the street from us because we're in a
Hey.
major city.
Yeah.
So like we can get pizza, we can get pasta, we can get burgers. Like they're called like fries are called chips here. So if you ask
Yeah.
for fries, nobody knows what you're talking about. You have to say you want chips, and then chips are called crisps, like
Oh
potato chips or
gosh.
crisps.
Oh
So
gosh.
like there's
I'm already
language thing that we have to
confused.
figure out. So we just we eat pretty normally because like we cook for ourselves.
Hmm.
But then like if we go over to somebody's house, it's usually a lot of red meat with like cornmeal. That's
Oh, yeah.
basically yeah. Like so they have what you call is a braai, which is basically a barbecue, but it's not the same. Like braai is a different level of intensity of a barbecue. It's like a way of life. And so yeah, like just red meat basically all of the time is a typical South African dietary intake.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that makes sense. That doesn't surprise me. That's kind of how my experience was, although I was not in South Africa. But you're feeling good. You guys are all you're all healthy.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean I actually for the risk of TMI, I do have an adverse reaction to like the cheap red meat here in South Africa.
Oh, interesting.
Like I cannot function after I eat meat some days. So we have to buy the expensive stuff from the premium grocery store that's like 97% lean
Yeah.
because otherwise I'm incapacitated because I have to stay very close to the restroom.
Oh, that's interesting. Is that just because of like food handling practices, or just the cheap cows out in the cheap fields or something?
I couldn't tell you what it is. I'm the only one who's affected by it. Like my entire family, like my wife and the kids, they eat it, and then I'm like writhing in pain the next day.
Huh,
And
that's very interesting.
I would presume that like it is handling. It's probably different mixtures of meats as well. Like what gets into the meat and what's considered beef may not exactly be what I expect is beef.
Got it. I'm reading you loud and clear. Oh, that's very interesting. Well, Brett, thank you so much, man. Not that you need it, but if you want to, I'll give you the option to plug your YouTube channel if you want.
No, I'm good.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Like I was listening to I think it was TJT versus you, and just like I don't want to use this as a platform for myself. I just wanted to use it to tell like the story of like what God is doing in my life.
For
and,
sure.
Like, I'm just kind of a normal guy who's in like really weird circumstances.
I know the feeling.
Like I'm just absolutely thankful for you guys, and I would encourage everybody to support you on Patreon if they can, because I just like I know what it's like to have people invested in the content that you create, and it means so much, and like the freedom that then comes from having financial stability to be able to even produce it. Like it's an amazing feeling, and like I want that for you and Gons to like. I want you to quit your full-time job and just become full-time podcasters. Like that's what I want for you guys.
Let's do it, baby.
You need the Patreon levels to do that.
Yeah, slowly but surely. We'll get there. All in God's timing. You know, God doesn't want to give us the millions right away, because, I mean, then we'll just disappear to Aruba. I've already said that publicly, and I'm pretty sure that's why the Patreon numbers are what they are. But no, you're absolutely right. It's an interesting feeling, and it's hard to describe when people support something like a Patreon, and it's like, yes, it's very nice to get a few bucks, you know, at the beginning of the month, but it's also like, whoa. Somebody liked it enough to even go through the process of putting your credit card into the internet. Like even the energy it took to type in 16 digits to sign up for a Patreon account is just very touching. That somebody was affected enough to even take the time to do that and support the work. So. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You can also use PayPal, just so everybody else knows.
There you go.
You can sign up with PayPal. You don't have to have a credit card.
That's right. It's even easier. Well, thank you so much, my man. This has just been a fantastic conversation. I had a lot of fun. I gotta say, I learned a lot. I learned a lot on this one. And, I just want to say God bless you for doing the work that you do, obviously not just with the YouTube channel, but with your ministry and with your family. And, God's brought you, probably, I would expect that you would never have expected to land where you have landed if you talk to, even 18-year-old you.
Oh, no, yeah. No, I was the definition of a punk, and yeah, no, God redeemed me and transformed my life, and I'm always in awe at what is happening, and it's so unique that I don't feel like I can get comfortable with it, which is such a good thing.
Oh, I know the feeling. That's fantastic. All right, man. Well, thanks so much. We're going to talk after the show, but let's say goodbye to all the adoring fans.
Goodbye, adoring fans. Love you.
All right, folks, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that because, I say it a lot, and I say that I say it a lot, but that was one of my favorite conversations. Brett really has just a real great testimony, and for me personally, such a unique experience to be able to hear about that and just be a part of the telling of that story was a real privilege. So thanks so much, Brett. I appreciate you coming on the show. That's right, folks, and if you want to be on the show, you can do it. I'm back in action, like I said, back from Burning Man. There's going to be some material from that coming out here, but I need to get back into the swing of things. And on top of that, we hit our first Patreon goal, so that means I have a little bit of freedom to start putting out episodes as quickly as possible, which means I need more of you to let me know that you want to be on the show. So please go ahead and do that. You can email tjtguests@gmail.com. That's TJTguests with an S at the end @gmail.com. Send an email there and you'll get put in the pipeline to come on the show. And just because there's some common questions, what you want to do is you just want to have a good internet connection. You got to have a Skype account, and it works best if you have some sort of microphone, and that could be as simple as like a iPhone headset with a microphone, the one that comes with an iPhone. I don't know. It's super easy. It's not a big deal. A lot of people are a little bit scared that they don't have some sort of audio recording setup. It's okay. Leave it to me, baby. We make it work. Okay, thanks again to all the new Patreon supporters. I love you guys. It's because of you that we're able to continue doing this show. Go ahead and send me the info for your rewards, as well as keep an eye out for some more bonus material. And if you guys are unable, I totally understand, to give financially or to support this show financially, it is a huge help if you just find an episode you like and send it to a friend. Word of mouth is the fastest way that this show gets spread, and you can leave a rating and a review on iTunes. That is done by going to iTunes or whatever podcatcher you use, leaving a rating, which is usually 1 to 5 stars. 1 star is, oh no, TJT made all my hair fall out. And 5 stars is, TJT made my hair fall out, but I look so good bald. Be good, y'all.
Hello, Basil. I understand you are of the younger, could we say, millennial generation, and you might not be familiar with Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. He is a rock legend, writer and singer of many hits, one of which is Janie's Got a Gun. Now, this title has alarmed me over the years, and I have the privilege of knowing and befriending Mr. Tyler, and I propositioned him to recut Janie's Got a Gun with Janie's Got Some Joy, which he has agreed to do. The following is a demo recording of Steven Tyler singing Janie's Got Some Joy. Janie's got some joy, chicka-pa-ding-bop. Janie's got some joy, chicka-pa-ding-bop. Whole world's got some joy. Chick-a-pa-ding bop. What is she gonna do? Chick-a-pa-ding bop. What a daddy do? He went and got some joy for you. He's got some joy. Chick-a-pa-ding.